Hey guys, it's Tara here from TaraAllenHealth.com. I'm inside my newish office, my home office. Still some finishing details to be done, but I'm very lucky to have a husband that's very handy. And if you guys are inside my private Facebook group called Lean In with Tara Allen Health, you saw where we were at about 5 weeks ago and where we're at today. I just was live in there right before here, and I showed them like a quick little tour of the office here. So I'm very excited. It's almost all the way done. We've just got some finishing details, blinds to pick out, chairs for the seating area, that type of thing. But most of it, molding, the pretty stuff, but most of it is done, and I just love working in this new space, so I'm excited. So I'll probably be doing most of my videos from here. This is like a new background for me. Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you guys about how often you should be eating. I don't like that word should, but I still wanted to put it in there. How often should you guys be eating if weight loss is your goal? Most of us have heard, especially over the last 10, 15 years, that we should be eating all throughout the day to stoke our metabolism, The truth is that there's actually no science behind it. The truth is that the theory came about because, by the way, I'm sorry if I'm a little echoey in here. It's still pretty empty in this room, so I don't know if the sound is off. The theory was that because there's a boost in metabolism when you do take in some food, that if you can do that more often throughout the day, then you're boosting your metabolism, more often, thinking that it was going to lead to a greater metabolism overall. But that's not true. So what the science actually tells us and shows us and proves to us is that it's based on what you take in, how much you take in, the spike in the metabolism. And it doesn't matter if you spread those meals out throughout the day or if you have them in just a few meals, let's just say. Still, let me give you an example. If you have 100 calories and then 100 calories, you will boost your metabolism that little bit just to digest those first 100 calories, and then a little bit over here just to digest that second 100 calories. Whereas if you put that together and you ate the 200 calories together, your metabolism boost would just be double. Okay? So basically, overall, it doesn't matter when it comes to the standpoint of metabolism boost due to the food that you're consuming. So it takes our body some energy to digest the food that you put in, meaning you eat something and your body has to actually burn calories to digest the calories that you just brought in, right? Of course, it's less. So whatever you bring in, your body's not going to be burning more calories just because you just ate. It's always going to be less, but it's that little bit of a boost in metabolism based on the energy that you're bringing in. Okay, so that myth was disproven, right? So it doesn't matter if you eat 6 small meals a day or 3 big meals a day in terms of the calorie burning of digesting your food, okay? But it does matter in terms of other things like hormones. So the answer, and then I'm going to go through why, is for most people, now of course this is not like a one-on-one thing. If you and I were working one-on-one, I would go into much more detail and figure out for you what would work out. But for most people, most of the time, it's simply 3 to 4 times a day. That is the ideal amount of times to eat for most people when they're thinking about weight loss, fat loss, body composition, even just overall health. Less than 3 times has not been shown to be beneficial for weight loss. So let's say you're eating 2 times a day. That comes with its own host of problems. And 3 times is usually ideal for most people, but sometimes it's 4 if certain circumstances, like if you're going to be going more than 6-7 hours between meals, then you're going to probably need that little snack. Or, if you're breastfeeding, if you're pregnant, if you're super active in your job, or you're super active like you're this, you're an athlete and you're training, you might need that extra meal. But otherwise, for most people, it's going to be about 3 times a day. So we're talking about not snacking most of the time. Now, if you're somebody that's going from eating 6 times a day right now, you're not going to just want to go down from 6 times a day to 3 times a day. That's a big change, okay? So we're going to get into the reasons why a little bit too. So your body's built-in system will tell you when it's time to eat. So I think that we've gotten so afraid of hunger that we do everything we can to not feel it, and we even try to prevent hunger from happening. So that's the time, I've done this too. So that's the time where you're like, oh, I'm going to a meeting, and the meeting might only be an hour, right? Or an hour and a half long, but you're like, I really want to make sure I'm not going to be hungry in the meeting. Even though I'm not hungry right now, I'm going to have a snack just to try to prevent me from being hungry inside that meeting, right? So we're trying to prevent hunger. And so we're kind of messing with our body's own signaling, which tells us roughly how much energy, how many calories, how much food we need to be consuming to maintain our body weight and or to come down to our ideal body weight, a healthy body weight. So our body has this really awesome built-in system that lets you know, right? So if you can picture like cavemen, they weren't sitting there adding up on their calculators how much they've eaten for the day and how many more calories they need, right? They would just like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to go find food, I'm gonna eat, that type of thing. So we can come back to our own body's innate system to tell us when it's time to eat, but we have to recalibrate our hunger, which means that we have to eat real food. Okay, because if you're starting to eat the processed sugars and the processed carbs and all these highly palatable foods that are created in a lab, that's going to mess with your body's ability to know when it's had enough food, to know when it's hungry. You're going to feel hungry all the time. You're not going to be satiated after a meal if you're consuming those types of things. So I would say before you even get down to trying to eat the amount of times that is ideal for weight loss, I would say try to focus on eating mostly real foods, real foods that have like one ingredient. That's the best thing you can do. Get away from the processed stuff. Then your body will really be able to tune into itself, and you'll be able to really know when you're hungry and when you're satisfied. And then you can work with that. You never have to count calories again, okay? So the other reason that it's important to go periods of time in between, hey Josephine, thanks for watching. The other reason it's important to go periods of time in between eating is it gives your insulin a chance to come down. So, okay, let me talk about what insulin is first, and then I'll tell you why that's important for it to come down. So any time that you eat something, if it has any protein or any carbs in it, okay, so it's very, very rare that we're ever eating something that's 100% fat, unless you're grabbing a teaspoon of coconut oil on the go or something. But mostly your food will have carbs or protein or a combination, right? Maybe with fat, maybe with not, but fat is out of the equation for this. So anytime you have the other macronutrients, your insulin levels go up because your blood sugar goes up. So your blood sugar goes up, right? It's a normal response, and our body releases insulin in order to grab that energy that you just took in and be able to pack it away in our cells. And whatever we don't need in our cells anymore gets stored as fat, okay? Insulin itself is a fat storage hormone. So the more insulin you have circulating around, the higher the level, and plus the more often it's in your system, the more fat storing that you're doing. Insulin is literally a hormone that tells your body to store fat. It tells your body that there's this excess of food going on and it needs to store it away. Now also, so as soon as your insulin is circulating around, your body then is trying to come back down to equilibrium, but it's going to take some time for you to digest that food. You're going to digest your food. It's still going to be sending out glucose into your blood. So therefore your insulin is still going to have to keep working. You want to give it a time where your blood sugar comes down to a normal level, your insulin comes back down, and now you're able to burn the fat. If you're constantly eating every 2 hours, let's just say, you're never letting your insulin levels actually come down in order to tap into your fat stores, which is what we want to do. It's what we want to do if we want to lose weight. It's what we want to do even if we want to stay the same weight but kind of tone up and lose body fat. And for most people, it's what you want to do even if you're just totally happy with where your body's at right now. You want to make sure that that fat that gets stored each and every time we eat, that we're also able to tap into and burn. You want it to be this fluid fat store, fat burn, fat store, fat burn, right? So it kind of comes in and comes out. That's the normal way. that your body is meant to work. So you have to give it some time in between eating. So you don't want to be eating every hour, every 2 hours, even if it's just that handful of candy, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You're always telling your insulin now to be elevated and then store fat, and not only store fat, but not tap into those fat reserves that you want to be burning and utilizing for energy. We want to let our bodies become better fat burners. So what you may notice, and this is why I said if you're eating 6 times a day, don't go right down to eating 3 times a day right now, because you are going to hit a wall, you're going to be hangry, you're going to be cranky, and that's when you really know that your body is relying on that very frequent glucose from your meals to come through. Hunger should be a gradual thing, right? So I think of it like at night when you're tired. Unless you're like super duper overtired or something, it's kind of gradual. You're like starting to feel tired. Maybe you make your way towards your bed, but it's gradual. It's not like this emergency that happens that hits you all at once, usually. Do you believe in intermittent fasting? Joey, yeah, I'm getting to that, and I believe in it to an extent, so I'll get to that soon. So just like when you're tired, it's kind of this gradual thing, but hunger is actually supposed to be gradual like that too. So if you're not feeling that, if it's like this, it feels like an emergency, it's really hitting you like a ton of bricks, there's something else going on. You're probably really a sugar burner, and your body's not used to being good and being adapted at burning fat. We're supposed to be able to go from one fuel source to the other. Burn some of your carbs, then go to your fat, and it should be seamless. It shouldn't feel like you're hitting a wall every time you do that. And you can train your body to get better at that. You got to do it gradually. So we want to learn how to use our fat storage. And the other thing is we really want to know that we can feel hungry and allow that hunger to sit for a little while. So I tell people often that like 30 to 60 minutes, trying to work up to feeling hungry about 30 to 60 minutes before your next meal is very, very successful when it comes to people that's trying to lose weight. That is just, if you can keep that number in mind. Right now, you might want to just sit with it for 5 minutes. If you're somebody that has worked up this big fear against being hungry, like a lot of us have, where your purse is full of snacks and you're just like so afraid to be hungry when you're out, start with 5 minutes. So today, see if before lunch and before dinner, you can let yourself be hungry for 5 minutes before you actually eat. But the point is, when you do eat, you should be hungry before you're eating, right? Because then you're going along with your body and specifically what your body needs. Now, yes, there could be some tricky situations. What if you wake up in the morning and you're just not hungry? Well, you may have eaten a little bit too close before bedtime. So you may want to kind of reverse engineer and see if you can bump your dinner up a little bit earlier. Because when you wake up, ideally you're feeling hungry in about an hour after you wake up, and you should be eating a nice breakfast. Now, if you do all of that and you're still not hungry in the morning, breakfast might be an exception. You may want to eat a breakfast that's high in protein, it's got some fat, and it can just kind of set up your day. And then from that point on, try not to eat until you're hungry again, okay? So I talked about some of the exceptions. So some of the exceptions would be if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you might still be able to eat 4 times a day. That might be fine. Some people that are pregnant and breastfeeding can eat 3 times a day, but typically you might need to eat a little bit more often and, add a couple snacks in there. If you're super active at your job, or if you're super active like as an athlete or training for something, you might need to add in an extra small meal, snack, shake, something like that. And then certain medical conditions. One common medical condition I hear about is hypoglycemia. And always check with your doctor. I'm going to sit here and say I don't know who's watching my videos and I cannot give you medical advice, but so always check with your doctor. However, a lot of things like hypoglycemia, it can be reversed by using some of these tactics to get yourself used to using fat to burn. Because when we all have plenty of fat on our body to use as fuel, okay? Even very thin people typically have plenty of fat that can last them a long time. So that hunger should not feel like the emergency, because the truth is you can go a long time without food if you really had to. You can't go a long time without water, but you can go a long time without food. You need electrolytes, you need some vitamins. So I'm not suggesting very long extended fasts, but I am just saying that our bodies are equipped to be able to go significant amount of time in between without eating. So it may take some time to adjust to burning this fat. Now, getting to Joey's question, and I was going to talk about intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is really hot right now. A lot of people are talking about it, and that's where you go a period of time where you are not eating. So you've got a feeding window. So typically people will do like an 8-hour feeding window, let's just say, or a 12-hour feeding window where you can eat only in those times, and then you go a longer time overnight, like 12 to 16 hours overnight, where you're not eating or you're not taking in any calories. You could have some black coffee, you could have water, that type of thing. Because it's so individual, 16 hours can be kind of tricky, especially for a lot of women, and the things that it can do for our hormones. It can actually start to shut down some things like our thyroid, and kind of lower our metabolism to the point where it's hard to recover from it. So do I think 16 hours could work for some women? Sometimes, sure. But typically my recommendation, because it's a safer bet, especially to start with, is to aim for about 12 hours overnight without eating. So Joey, yes, I do believe in intermittent fasting to an extent. And this is mostly from a health promotion point of view and not even from a weight loss, but it could help with weight loss too, especially if you're a late night snacker. But let's say you finish dinner by 7 p.m. and you have your breakfast at 7 a.m. I don't find it to be all that difficult to do once you get used to it. I find it really goes well with the rhythm and the structure of people's days, and it gives your body that solid time to be able to digest your food mostly before you go to sleep, and then you've got all of those sleeping hours to let your body's cleanup crew come and do its thing. So there's very promising research out there that your body can come and clean up all kinds of damage, detox itself, fight away those beginning cancer cells. We all have cancer cells in our body at all times. So this is a chance for your body to come in and maybe clean some of that up, clean up some of the damage, restore, rejuvenate, grow your muscles that you worked so hard on during the day. All of that stuff happens overnight, and it's really super helpful for your health, and it also really helps for your weight as well. So, hey Nicole, thanks for watching. So intermittent fasting, I would say, again, work up to it. If normally you're still snacking at 11 o'clock at night and you wake up at 6 and you have your breakfast, that's only 7 hours. I don't recommend going from that all the way to 12 hours right away. See if you can push that back by a half hour and another half hour. Give it a few days and see if you can just slowly work up to it. I mentioned earlier in the video, but it's worth saying again, a very important part of this process is making sure that you're eating predominantly real foods, okay? So we all have those things that we have sometimes, right? We all want to have some fun food, totally fine. But I'm saying at least 80% of the time, let's just say, the 80-20 rule, having the real foods, like the one ingredient foods, the avocado or the, whatever, it doesn't really matter what it is, but the things that aren't processed, the things that don't have flour and sugar and all this overly processed stuff is so important for you to be able to calibrate your hunger. It's really the only way that this is going to work. Otherwise, you're never going to feel like you can make it so long in between meals. Going from breakfast to lunch is going to feel like a marathon to you if you're not consuming real foods. Also, and this is a good point too, if you're used to eating 6 meals a day and let's say you come back down to 3 eventually over time, your meals are going to be bigger. So you're going to, which for a lot of people is helpful. You're going to get to eat big, satisfying meals because a lot of us, especially women that are these chronic dieters, you're never quite satisfied. You're always eating like these tiny meals and then 2 hours later another one, and your mind is always all about the food, and there's so much packing and Tupperware and all this stuff, and it actually becomes harder. But you're never like satisfied after a meal. You're never actually turning off all of your hunger signals because you're not eating a meal that's substantial enough. So if you eat real foods, you make sure it's balanced. It's got the smart carbohydrates, things like sweet potatoes or fruit or something like that. You've got your protein source, you've got your fat source, maybe a bunch of extra veggies in there. You can have a decent size of it. I'm doing this with my hand because I'm picturing like a huge salad. But whatever it is, your meal can be balanced and substantial, and you can look forward to it, and it's exciting. And then you can go several hours until your next meal, until lunch or until dinner, let's just say. Okay, so also staying hydrated is important. A lot of times when we're dehydrated, our brain gets those signals mixed up and we think that we are hungry. So make sure you're staying hydrated through this process too. So now what will you notice when you do this? So you're eating mostly real foods. You get yourself down to eating only 3 times a day, maybe 4. What kind of things will you notice? You may think that I'm gonna go straight to the weight loss. I'm not. I'm gonna save that to the end. You will notice your emotions. Okay, because we don't even realize it a lot of times, but we eat because we're bored. We eat because we're procrastinating something else. We eat because we're sad or angry or depressed or whatever, all those things. So now, if you're eating less often, you might feel those emotions come up a little bit more. So just be aware of it. It's not bad. Allow yourself to feel it, totally cool, but just be aware that that might happen. Okay, hunger. You're gonna notice hunger, right? That's what we're talking about this whole time. So ideally it's about 30 to 60 minutes before your meal, you should be feeling hungry. It should come on gradually. It shouldn't feel like an emergency. And a lot of times if it does feel like an emergency, like it's this strong craving or you all of a sudden feel so hungry, you're almost like nauseous, that's usually not hunger. That's usually like a withdrawal from something like sugar or flour or one of those things. So it's not normal to just go from being okay to being over the top, nauseous, hungry, that type of thing. That's not a normal feeling, and so you might want to look deeper into that. Shoot me a message if that's what's going on with you. We can talk about it. So it's okay, so hunger normally should be gradual, and it's not an emergency, right? I think that's a big thing to think about. You don't have to always prevent hunger from happening. If you are a surgeon and you're going to go into an 8-hour surgery, sure, you might want to like front load your morning with lots of extra calories to be able to get through that, okay? But most of us aren't in that type of situation. So even if we're heading into a meeting for an hour, we don't have to say, I'm not hungry right now, but I'm afraid I'm going to get hungry in the middle of the meeting, and then what do I do? So I'm going to have to eat something now, even though I'm not hungry, just to make it through the meeting. We don't have to do that, okay? Most of the time. So be okay with being a little uncomfortable. And truth be told, discomfort is the currency of all of our dreams. Okay, we have to get ourselves out of the box. We have to do things that make us feel nervous. We have to be okay with being a little hungry to get the body we want. We have to be okay with being a little sore after a good workout so that we can get nice and strong. If you think about all these different areas, in your relationship, to make a relationship really work, you have to be okay with sometimes having a difficult conversation. It's just all a part of life. So discomfort really is the currency of your dreams. If you can get okay with being a little bit uncomfortable in situations, you're gonna find that you're not afraid to do anything because you're not afraid to feel any of these uncomfortable feelings. So you're like, whatever, I got this. You can do anything. And then of course, the other thing that you'll notice after doing this, most likely, will be weight loss. So if you go from eating 6 times a day, it probably started out as 6 small meals. It probably ended up being 6 medium meals. You're probably never feeling satisfied. You probably lose control over what you really are eating. The handful of M&Ms don't even register that you ate, that type of thing. If you do that and you gradually come back down to eating 3 balanced, healthy, sustainable meals, you will most likely find weight loss as a result of that. Okay, if you have any questions, I know this one was a little bit deeper and more involved than most of my videos, but if you have any questions, you can drop them right here in the comments here. If it's something that you don't feel comfortable putting out there in the public, you can always message me privately. I am the only one that reads my messages, and I answer every single one of them. I'm happy to chat back and forth with whatever you have going on. And if you're not already inside my private Facebook group, it's called Lean In with Tara Allen Health. Get on inside the group. I share videos like this. I share recipes every week, workouts, all kinds of things like that. So it's a fun group to be in, and it's a nice way to not miss out on what I'm doing, because we all know with these Facebook algorithms, you may see my page post today, and then tomorrow you may not see this. So get on inside the group. I'll post a link here in the comments if that sounds interesting to you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.